And my husband says to this day that from that moment on, he kind of lost me for a few days because I just went down this story tunnel and I went, I've got to write a story out of this.
Hello and welcome to Memorandum Podcast. This week, special guest again. Looking forward to this one all the way from Amsterdam. We'll be talking to Matthew Kerr-Lewis. Now, I've got a long history with Matthew and we'll chat about that together. But he was also instrumental in driving the inclusion of a wonderful chapter in Memorandum 3. This yellow one. Sorry, this is my scribbled on copy. But so Matthew Kerr-Lewis, all the way from Amsterdam. Welcome, Matthew. Are you there?
Hi, Remo.
So I'm just going to explain to folks how we met, Matthew, and we met in the most wonderful of circumstances. And I wonder if I can get my finger right here. This photograph behind me of the Remo team in 1988 includes this very handsome man wearing a felt crown.
A red felt crown
A
made by Edie Kurza.
A young Matthew Kerr-Lewis. And I don't think I've ever asked you, but how did you actually come into Remo world in those very early days?
Okay, so it was a bit outrageous. I'd just spent 5 months in New York and I was living on a street in the East Village, walked past your shop, and in the window were these neoprene earrings, these kind of cut-out animations.
I remember them.
And I went, hang on. I said, those were being sold literally down the block from me on 10th Street in the East Village. And I was a little ballsy in those days, and I walked in and I said, hi, I'm Matthew. I've just got back to New York, and those earrings were being sold on my street in New York, and you need to give me a job.
And I said, you're high. That could have been Civilization. The shop could have been Civilization. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
but I was only there for a short time because I was back in Australia while I was putting in my application for New York University. I got accepted, and then I'm pissed off back to New York. So having scored this wonderful job, I had to leave again.
Well, you made a big impression, I have to say.
Thank you.
And
it was great.
And Kate Champion,
Kate and I were for
very august arts creative director, now running the
West Australian Theatre Company.
West Australian Theatre Company. Yes.
Yep. And she's going great guns there.
You became mates before?
We met. Yeah. We met in Adelaide. I was a dance student at the Centre for Performing Arts in 1983. But previous to that, I had run a cafe in Sydney called Pastels. And Kate came as a guest to one of our ballet classes, and I was wearing my Pastels t-shirt in Adelaide. And she said, what are you doing wearing a Pastels t-shirt? And I said, well, I used to run it. Like, what do you care? And but we got talking, and it was immediately like, oh, this woman's amazing. And she's been one of my best friends ever since. And
she is amazing. Yeah.
And she ended up working at Remo as well for a period, quite a few years after me, I think.
That was, they were kind of crazy, frantic, but magical days. I can't quite put my finger on why.
Indeed.
You know, maybe it was a time and a place. And
I think it was pre-internet and pre-social media. I mean, the internet gives us wonderful things. We can do this. Social media, I'm not so crazy about what it's done to everyone and what it's done to socialization. But yeah, they were different. They were very different those days.
It was and we had all of those artists and designers living in the, Sergeant's Pies building and various other places around Darlinghurst. And whether they were Edie Kurza selling crowns or Robin Back and her work or Joyce Hinterding, it became like the physical Etsy as well, because we had that contemporary design.
No, it was an amazing business you created, Remo, and that you're still doing with Memorandum.
I know.
It continues in another life form.
Dog with a bone. I have to tell you, coincidentally, Yesterday I went to our garage in Bondi and I met with two curators from the Powerhouse Museum because, I do have some kind of big, awesome pieces of signage, including like giant wooden smile that, God
Right.
knows, and the head and the big head. And
Yeah.
the Camp Remo letters from the uh, People family shot from 1993, handmade by Hugh Ramage and Peter King. Anyway, so we'll see what if and what they want and what they don't want. I don't know. Maybe I'll list them on the website and see who wants to take a piece. Um, so anyway, enough reminiscing. Let's move on. And the chapter you're going to talk about from Memorandum 3
Sure.
is actually the only chapter out of the 450 so far that I haven't written myself because you wrote
Wow.
it. Because I thought the guy's a writer, not only can he give me the idea, but he can, I mean, I had a bit to do with it, but it was so my pronunciation is not as good as yours. So can you tell us the story of?
Sure. L'inconnu de la Seine. So this story, strangely enough, first came to me via QI, the BBC program. Stephen Fry was the compere. I wasn't watching it. I was upstairs in our Amsterdam apartment, and my husband suddenly yelled out, "Did you know this?" And I kind of came downstairs, and he said, "Did you know?" Sort of relayed what had happened on the show. Did you know that the face of Ressassa Anne, the training mannequin used to teach CPR, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation around the world, did you know that her face is modeled on the face of a woman who drowned in Paris in 1890? And my husband says to this day that from that moment on, he lost me for a few days because I just went down this story tunnel and I went, I've got to write a story out of this. And so I was doing a film study thing at the time. So I wrote a treatment for something I called Breath of Life, which combined an imagined story of that woman who drowned in Paris and the story of which I excavated a bit of the Lærdal family in Norway who created Ressassa Anne, of them making this mannequin, and then combined it with another fictional story set in Sydney during terrible bushfires. Because the thing is, my grandfather, Sir Adrian Kaluas, was the president of the Surf Lifesaving Association of Australia for 40 years, I think.
Right.
And he was kind of instrumental in, bringing CPR to Australia in the sense that he was one of the main organizers of a big conference that happened that time that came out with the recommendation that Australia should adopt this thing. But back to L'inconnu. So what happened is in the 1890s in Paris, when people would die and not be identified, the police would make what was called a death mask, and it was a plaster of Paris, cast of the face, and then they would hang that face in the police station in the hopes that someone might come forward and identify the person. Because, as you can imagine, no fridges, bodies were not really good to keep for very long, but the face could be there. And many faces came and went, and people got identified and didn't. But there was this one mask that did not get identified, but people became fascinated with it because there was something about her expression that is sort of, she's also been described as the drowned Mona Lisa. She's sort of a bit wistful, a bit between a smile and a tear. But there's something very peaceful and quite beautiful about her. So it's a death mask, but it's not at all a face of grisly death. So artists got fascinated with it. Who was she? What was the story behind this woman who actually never became identified? But various crazes happened. Like Man Ray photographed her. Nabokov wrote a story kind of based on her, and people would come up with these fantastical reasons why she died and how her face ended up like that. So that's all going on in the early 1920s. Apparently in Berlin, there was a whole spate of girls having their hair cut to look exactly like L'Inconnu de la Seine. It was that kind of, it caused that much of a wave throughout Europe. This wave reached Norway. So we cut to Norway, where we have a doll and toy maker called Esmond Lærdal. Drownings happen a lot in Norwegian fjords. And at one point, he had to fish his 2-year-old son, Tor, out of the water, who was drowning, and they shook him by his feet, and the water came out, and thankfully they got him back to life.
When was this? What year was it?
I
like
think
the 50s, right?
58, yeah.
Yeah, so many years after the L'Inconnu.
Yeah. But this guy was, he was just starting to get into soft plastics for his doll making. But this experience with his son suddenly made him go, there's got to be a better way to resuscitate people than shaking him, because many times that doesn't work. Various things led him to meet a Norwegian anesthesiologist who'd been in touch with a New York heart surgeon, a person who had just come up with the sort of first inklings of CPR, that these chest compressions and breath delivered through the mouth could resuscitate people. The big problem was, though, to train people to breathe into a human, it hurts, it doesn't work, and you can't do it. Lærdal was the one who thought, what if we could make a mannequin that could mimic the body's responses, and people could train on that? And so he set about developing it. But it was a big amount of research that took a number of people, anatomical specialists, doctors, anesthesia, all kinds of people, and then people to just make this thing. You know, the air had to expel, the chest had to inflate and deflate, all these mechanics of the thing. Finally, it came to, okay, they decided it was going to be a woman, but she couldn't look dead and she couldn't look sexy. Yeah? Both of those things would be wrong as far as people training and putting their mouths on her mouth. So it couldn't be in a frock. And they very smartly came up with a tracksuit. And the funny thing is, I've shared this story in various ways, and quite a few people have come back to me and said, oh, look, that's impossible. A tracksuit wasn't around at that time. It's true. I've been to Norway. I've seen the original thing, and they really, it was such a smart choice because it makes her look kind of fit and active. And at that time, the tracksuit was not a thing. But then finally it came to the face. Whose face should this model have? It turned out that the death mask of L'Inconnu was hanging in, I think it was Esmond's parents-in-law's house in their living room. And I guess he'd probably seen it many, many times, but then one time saw it and went, hang on, that's exactly the face we need. So he then got a consultant in to it was her face, but then she did a few things. She did stitched in hair and a few features to make her, a bit more lifelike, I guess. But the thing is that face of death, that death mask, has now become the face of life because it's been kissed hundreds of thousands of times. And as a result, it's brought people back to life.
More than hundreds of thousands of times, like hundreds of millions of times.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. And you know, when I tell badly this story, not as well as you did, to people, they are. I mean, the beautiful thing is this kind of back then meets now, and this kind of link between those two things. It's and we still don't know who she was, right? It's like a mystery.
I don't think we ever will. And there's, I've actually got one of the masks. We were extremely lucky. We'd been in Paris on one trip. When I say we, I'm talking about my Dutch husband. We'd been in Paris on a trip, and I'd asked in all sorts of places. And then we went to the Musée d'Orsay because it turned out they'd had an exhibition of death masks sometime before. And we seriously got that last one, and they had to go and dig in the basement and all kinds of things. But we got.
Was it very expensive or?
A few hundred. It wasn't
Right,
cheap.
okay.
It wasn't frightfully
That's
expensive.
great.
But it's, and many more stories and more research has happened and gone into her. And, people, there's all kinds of questions as well, like she couldn't possibly have done the fact is there's a mystery around it.
Yeah.
And people are going to want to solve it. People are going to disprove it. There's all this stuff happens. But the fact is there's a mask.
I love it.
Turned into
And
Rosassa, and that's it, end of story.
the only other story that we've had in Memorandum that sort of focuses on a face is that Shepherd Fairy, a Bay Giant, where he sort of randomly took Andre the Giant's face and turned it into this kind of global icon that, the comparable groovy living rooms of the early 21st century had to have that on their walls and stuff. But, oh, that's great, Matthew. Thank you for delivering that live. I'm sure people will reread that chapter. We've got a bit of time, and I just like to back up a little bit. I didn't ask you how you ended up in the Netherlands to live.
Right.
And also I'm curious about your writing work and to get your opinion on the topic du jour, which is like AI and its relationship with creativity and how much are we allowed to use it and how much are we allowed to not use it, blah, blah, blah.
How many days have you got for this interview?
I reckon we've got about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I came to Amsterdam and, I was sort of thinking, how could I move here? I had my 40th birthday. I traveled around the world, had 3 parties everywhere. Got back to Amsterdam, went, if I'm meant to be alone, that's the way it is. But hey, I've got these great friends around the world. How lucky am I? And, that's it. And, a month later, this guy walks into my life that friends have since asked, did you write him into a film script? Or was that like, how did you get him?
I have met him, and he is
you
quite
can attest.
charismatic character. Yeah.
Yes. So that was great. We got married in 2008. We got together, shortly after that. We've been together all this time. So I've been able to stay in the Netherlands.
Great.
I set up something called Amsterdam Writers. So I have my own. I lead writing workshops. And I lead writing workshops in something called the Amherst Writers and Artists Methodology, which is from the States. And these days, I'm also hugely active with them. I've become a board member with them. And it's funny that you should ask about the AI thing, because we recently had our annual online retreat as AWA. And I spearheaded a panel called Generative A, friend or foe to writers. And so it was myself and 4 panelists, and we had such a wonderful discussion of, there are so many, there are positives, there are also a bunch of negatives. And I think where we came down on the side of was we still desperately need human authored stories, because the scary thing is, and one of my panelists was Zanny Louise, who's a fantastic Australian writer. And she's just had her first young adult novel come out. And she was talking about the fact that her story, she digs to get her characters. She delves into everything, and it draws on everything from her, all of her knowledge, her childhood experiences, her experiences with the Australian bush. There's so many things that feed into the words that end up on the page that come from her. They're not coming from a machine. They're not coming from a database. And if I find it really, sad that some writers, I can understand research. Okay, you want to find out about the Leerdal toy company in the 1950s. Fantastic. Go and knock yourself out and get all of that data.
Mm.
But if you're trying to write a novel, no, you're not. You can't go to AI, because that's stealing from every writer who has come before you. But literally, it's not like your thoughts that you've had consequent to that book you read 6 years ago. So yeah, we were, I think on the side of, you also don't want to be left, you don't want to be a Luddite. You don't want to kind of say, oh, I can't touch AI. But I don't know. I see a lot of negatives, and you kind of only have to read a bit read widely, and you'll see that there's a lot of things that aren't right about it. And I kind of go, if it takes all our jobs to give us this so-called free time, how are we all going to be making money to do anything with our free time? And there's such a thing as work satisfies a lot of people. Work brings enjoyment to a lot of people. And I see that just being taken away. Copywriters, I've been copywriting a lot. Copywriters are getting that's out. Creative directors, software people, these jobs are disappearing, and I don't see things coming to replace them.
No.
So
I use, there's another, I think, legitimate, back to your point about pragmatism, there's another legitimate use, and it's something that I use it for, and that is brainstorming and idea generation, because of like volume, so I can ask the AI, here are a list of memorandum topics from the last book. Right. Please generate a list of 100 ideas that are similar to but different to this list of 90 chapters. And I'll spit out 100 ideas, and 2 of them I'll use.
Yep.
So that's kind of an interesting research-esque. It's not quite research, but it's like it's it's mechanized dot connecting, because they go, okay, well, he wrote about Jumbo the elephant, so therefore Hashiko, the loyal dog who stood at the railway station waiting for its dead owner for 9 years, might be relevant. So that's just an example.
Could you ever do a test on yourself and give yourself, say, an hour, and say, okay, how many tangential ideas can I come up with in an hour, and then see what, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
it would be a fraction. It would be a fraction.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think there's always got to be a final edit, a final human edit. There's another, sure. There's another memorandum-related thing, and that is that through this radio station, 2RPH, that actually broadcasts this podcast that we're doing now on Saturday nights here in Sydney. The other thing they do, they have a bunch of volunteers who read chapters from the books. Okay. And their schedule, it's the radio station is the one that serves the sight impaired communities by reading articles from magazines and newspapers. It's that kind of thing. Right. But they often have like 3 minute holes here and there, and what they fill them with are what they refer to as sharp shorts, which are the memorandum chapters read by their volunteers. So there are 4 volunteers, or 4 or 5, who we have a Google Doc register of all of the chapters, and they pick the ones they want to read, and they read them, and they end up. But they're live, real people who I've met reading those stories. Now, I'm sure that I could get an AI to do the same thing, but there's like a missing piece of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So can I bring you to something very human that I'm doing right now this month? So with there used to be something called NaNoWriMo, which stood for the National Novel Writing Month. It was started in the US a bunch of years ago. It went on to become an international thing, and as of their 2024 edition, they had over 400,000 subscribers. And what it was essentially a word count challenge. During the month of November, you're encouraged to try and write your first novel or a novel, 50,000 words. So that was kind of the thing. This year, the organization fell apart through various reasons I won't get into here. So with Amherst Writers, we suddenly went, okay, there's 400,000 people looking for some writing opportunities in November. Maybe we should offer something. So what we did in a scrambled amount of time was come up with something, and we've called it Write On November. And what we're offering is free online writing in community sessions every weekday of November. And they happen from 7:30 till 8:30 in the morning in 4 different global time zones. So
wow.
the day kind of starts 7:30, 8:30 in Amsterdam, then New York's 7:30, then LA's, and then Tokyo's, which ends up actually being the next morning. So we had last week was the first week. We've had 2 days now. And I can't tell you, it's with the feedback we're getting. So what happens, you join, and at 7:30, there's a bunch of people online.
So it's a big like Zoom group of people.
Yep,
how many people?
Yep. So we've had like up to 70 in one.
Wow.
Yeah. And the host says, okay, I'm putting us all on creative quiet. So everybody gets muted. You are invited to keep your screen on. And then it's silence for 55 minutes and everybody writes. But by keeping the screen on, there's accountability. You don't get up and go and do your laundry because you're going to be seen, you know? So people actually work for 55 minutes. 25 past 8, the host comes back on and says, okay, you're welcome. You don't have to. You're welcome to enter up to 50 words of what you've created into the chat. Everybody else, you know, you can read what's been done and offer an emoji or a few words of strength-based feedback. And it's just going gangbusters. People are so kind to each other in the chat, but people have also been coming back saying, oh, just writing in community. There's something about this. There's
the community
silent
thing is
and sacred, and it's that's what I'm saying with. So I came across a quote today. Reading is love in action. Yeah, from a Korean writer called Han Kang. Reading is love in action, and I went, you know why? Because writers pour their hearts into their words.
Right.
And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing this month. So if anyone's interested, go to amherstwriters.org. That's amherstwriters.org, where you'll find the Write On November link.
Right.
You can
so
register.
we still have a couple of weeks, so they can
Yeah,
great.
And so Sydney, it happens 9:30 because it's Tokyo 7:30. But, you know, you can choose. I've got someone from Vancouver who joins the Amsterdam 7:30 group because she's like, it's 10:30 at my commute. I'm a night owl. Thank God. I found someone online who's doing something at a time for me. So,
oh, that's great. Well, that's a lovely way to finish too, because we're out of time. We have to fit into that community radio half-hour slot. So, Matthew, what a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
And I'm glad you received your book number 5. I want the rest of you to know that you can order the books online at remorandum.com. And feed me your ideas. I know you're not the AI, you're not a bot, but you're a human being. You probably have some good ideas of topics, just like Matthew's ideas. So thanks so much. And that little tinkling bell was a clock probably telling you you're off to your next appointment. Thanks.
Now to a board meeting with AWA. So that's good. Okay.
Cheers, Matthew.
Thank you, Remo. Lovely.
Bye.
And thanks everyone who listened or watched. Thank you.
Cheers.